Again, welcome everybody. We'll start in just a minute or two.
We light this chalice for the light of hope, the fire of commitment, and the warmth of community.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Reverend Amanda Weatherspoon, your Associate Minister. This is a community of spirit, service, and community, where we invite and embrace the fullness of who each of us are. We bring our imperfections, we bring our spirit to try and try again. We bring ourselves fully this morning. This is, of course, a live Zoom service today. We'll all be in the Zoom room together. And if you would like to watch this Zoom after the service, it will be up on YouTube and also on our podcast in the days to come. Once again, we welcome everyone into this space. If you're new with us this morning, please reach out to us by sending us an email at membership@rruuc.org. And one of us will get back to you with more information on how to join in our community. This morning's words of welcome come from Meg Barnhouse, The Beauty of the Whole. We gather to worship, our hearts alive with hope that we will be truly seen, that here we will be welcomed into the garden of this community, where the simple and the elegant, the fluted and the frilled, the shy and the dramatic complement one another and are treasured. May we know that here, each contributes in their way to the beauty of the whole. Come, let us worship together.
Oops.
Clif, you're on. Oops.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing you right now. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, I am Clif. I am Clif Hardin, Director of Music here at River Road. In today's service, we will be exploring our human experience of grief through stories, prayers, reflections, and music. To provide some context for the music, I would like to introduce the video selections you will hear. They come from a piece I wrote years ago, simply entitled Requiem. First, a little history behind this piece. In the early 1990s, our choir performed a beautiful requiem by the composer John Rutter. The words for that piece are in Latin and come from the Catholic Rite and have been in existence for hundreds and hundreds of years. After that Rutter Requiem performance, a longtime member, Mary Scammon, approached me. Mary said, "I enjoy that piece, but why don't we have a requiem that has words that Unitarians can readily identify with?" I didn't have a good answer, but Mary did. She answered by forming a committee to support a project for me to write the work she envisioned. The Requiem was born and first performed at River Road in 1993. There have been a good number of performances of this piece in other Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country since then. Here at River Road, there have been a total of 4 performances. The last one was in 2015. It is from that performance that you will hear today 4 of the 11 movements of the piece. The texts for the Requiem come from many sources, poetry and readings old and new. The sequence of the movements is designed to loosely follow a journey, starting with a point before a person meets death, then through the moment of death, then through the motions of bereavement of those who have experienced the loss. Eventually, the piece closes with gratitude and reconciliation. Though you won't be able to follow the musical journey as closely with just 4 of the 11 movements heard today, I think the ones you will hear today speak for themselves and stand alone. Many thanks to all who have taken part in making all of this possible through the years, especially the singers of the choir, past and present. We begin with the opening movement, a setting of William Dunbar's poem, Timor mortis conturbat me, which means fear of death disturbs me. Let us continue today's journey.
Good morning.
I'm Chris McCann, your religious educator for children. Today, I'd like to share a story called Cry Heart But Never Break by Glenn Ringfeld, adapted by Reverend Laura Bogle. In the far north, in a small, snug house, 4 children lived with their beloved grandmother. A kindly woman, she had cared for them for many years. Now she had a visitor. Not wishing to frighten the children, the visitor had left his scythe outside the door. All the same, they knew that it was death. Nels, the oldest, and his sister Sonia closed their eyes, heavy with sorrow. Casper, who was younger, tried to ignore the visitor, but Leah, the youngest, who was always getting into trouble, stared straight at death. In the quiet, the children could hear their grandmother upstairs, breathing with the same raspy breaths as the figure at the table. They knew death had come for her and that time was short. Since everyone knows death's only friend is night, the children quickly made a plan. They would keep death away from their grandmother by giving him coffee all through the night. At dawn, he would have no choice but to leave without her. So every time Death emptied his cup, Nels would ask, "More coffee, sir?" And Death would nod. Death loved his coffee strong and black like the night, and he was happy to sit and rest for a while. Time passed. Finally, Death was ready. He placed his bony hand over his cup to signal, "No more." Then Leah, who had been watching Death all night, reached out and took his hand. "Oh, Death," she said, "our grandmother is so dear to us. Why does she have to die?" Some people say Death's heart is as dead and black as a piece of coal, but that's not true. Beneath his inky cloak, Death's heart is as red as the most beautiful sunset and beats with a great love of life. Death wanted to help the children understand, so he said, "I would like to tell you a story." And in a strong, sweet voice, he began to speak. "Once upon a time, so long ago that only I can remember, there lived 2 brothers. One was called Sorrow, the other Grief. Woeful and sad, they moved up and down their gloomy valley. They went slowly and heavily, and because they never looked up, they never saw through the shadows to the tops of the hills. At the tops of those hills, there lived 2 sisters, Joy and Delight. They were bright and sunny, and their days were full of happiness. The only shadow was their sense that something was missing. They didn't know what, but they felt they couldn't fully enjoy their happiness. I think you can guess what happened next. One day, the brothers and the sisters met. Sorrow fell instantly in love with Delight, and she with him. It was the same for Grief and Joy. Each couldn't live without the other. After their double wedding and a great celebration, the 2 couples moved into neighboring houses halfway up and halfway down the hill. This way, the distance to their old homes was the same. They all lived to be very old. When the time came to die, grief and joy did so on the same day, as did sorrow and delight. Their happiness together had been so great that they couldn't live without each other. That's a good story, said Nels. It's the same with life and death, Death said. What would life be worth if there were no death? Who would enjoy the sun if it never rained? Who would yearn for day if there were no night? The children weren't sure they had understood death fully, but somehow he knew that he was right. At last, Death stood up. It was time to go upstairs. A line of pale gray was edging away the night. Casper wanted to stop Death, but Nels held him back. No, Nels said. Life is moving on. This is how it must be. Moments later, the children heard the upstairs window open. Then, in a voice somewhere between a cry and a whisper, Death said, "Fly, soul, fly, fly away." The children hurried upstairs. They tiptoed into their grandmother's room. Grandmother had died. The curtains were blowing in the gentle morning breeze. Looking at the children, Death said quietly,
Cry, heart, but never break. Let your tears of grief and sadness help begin a new life.
Then he was gone. Ever after, whenever the children opened a window, they would think of their grandmother. And when the breeze caressed their faces, they could feel her touch. In the years that followed, the children lived with their joy and their sorrow, but they always remembered Death's words and took great comfort from their hearts, which grieved and cried, but never broke.
Excuse me, momentary technical difficulty. I'm trying to get Nancy spotlighted. There you go.
You know, we gather together, not just to say things, but to do things. We gather together to do things that impact our hearts and the world around us. And as we near the end of voting on November 3rd, we want you to know that there are places to go. There are things to do that can help you connect through the uncertainty of the coming weeks. From a drop-in community Zoom on the night of the election itself to a noon online vigil on Wednesday, the 4th, we are indeed in this together. We are learning and responding as creatively and authentically as we can. There are so many ways to get connected and stay connected to a life of spiritual deepening and service right here at River Road. And I'll just highlight a few for you this week. As you know, we passed a racial justice resolution in June that stands to impact how we are together in the years and decades to come. Approving a resolution is just a first step in building the beloved community that includes us all. So if you want to know more about how to connect to efforts to make our resolution come to life, you can hop on over to our website where new materials are there to help you find out more information and get involved. You can contact Reverend Amanda also for more information. You may also have received an email this week, and I know it is almost impossible to clear the backlog of our emails, but an important one about a joint effort between Cedar Lane, River Road, and the Fairfax UU congregations, inviting you to participate in an important opportunity we call the Potomac Partnership. The Potomac Partnership, this linkage between these three congregations, is inviting you to respond in writing to 7 questions for their storytelling project, exploring what you yearn for in the future of our congregation and our partnerships and our faith beyond these walls. Check your email, respond by November 15th to help us continue to explore what Unitarian Universalism is now and what it can be. River Road's Green Sanctuary team is so delighted they have been invited to join a national cohort of 9 UU congregations to explore the new Green Sanctuary program launched on September 15th. It is called A Faithful Response to Climate Urgency, and we will at River Road be busily updating and implementing our Green Sanctuary Action Plan for the next year. We hope you'll find out more and get involved. Meanwhile, our leadership and nominations team is hosting a leadership training on November 21st. You can sign up now for practical advice on what it means to lead during the challenging time of COVID. You'll see more information in the newsletter in the weeks to come. Indeed, in the midst of all this, we are held by our joys and our sorrows. We are held by our laughter and our tears. And as you take a moment right there in your own sacred space to call to mind those joys and concerns that rest most closely on your heart, together we hold up Diana Chimes, whose mother passed away late last week. Diana is offering good care and support to her family and is grateful to know that she is loved and appreciated by her congregational family as well. Once again, we witness the fires burning in beautiful and beloved places of our nation. Once again, we mourn for what is lost, even as we work to protect what yet shall be. This week also, we honor the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and the dream of a global community that it represents, lifting up all the world's people through global collaboration. Let us not let that dream waver and work toward building it up day by day, year by year. We also steel ourselves once again for the numbers of the sick and the lost and the weary and the working, for the climbing caseloads, each of which is not just a statistic, but a life noticed and grieved and worrying and wondering exactly how we might make it through together. We are indeed a people with much to celebrate and a people with much to lament. So as we center down, blessed by this music and by each other's company for a time of prayer and reflection, I call to mind another time when people wept and wondered when and how the struggles before them would ever end. as the poets phrased it in the Hebrew hymn of lament, Psalm 13. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day hold sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? How long, O Lord? Spirit of life and of love, how long must our grief be written freshly on our hearts each day? How long until we are no longer afraid, no longer weary, no longer anxious for the unfolding of each moment? How long, O Lord, must we rest in this unknowing, scrapping our way from one right decision to the next? In this day, in this time of All Souls and All Saints, we lift up the courage of our grief, the beauty to be found in and through our unknowing. Hold us, Spirit of life, and help us to hold each other as we lament all that we do not know and work for all that we can yet control. May it be so, and amen. Holding that prayer, an honest lament spoken to and from the depths of our own hearts, I invite you to sing along with Linda Hardin to Mimi Bornstein's beloved hymn, Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
This is a community rich in partnerships and in generosity. Each month at River Road, through Extend the Offering, we have the opportunity to partner with a community organization whose values align with ours. For the month of October, our Extend the Offering recipient is Partner Church. Our bonds to Partner Church go very deep here in this community. And here to share more about Partner Church today is Pat Wan, who's actually a founding member of the Partner Church Committee here at River Road. Welcome, Pat.
As we extend our offering today, let us extend our thoughts to villagers in Northeast India and Transylvania, where our partnerships link us to the Mau Blanc community and to Fiat Folva. Each community reflects very distinct culture-based religious practices, but we all hold to the principles of Unitarianism, respect for human dignity, and the environment that cradles us. River Road Partner Church Committee linked to Mount Blanc in Northeast India in 2007, when we learned of the economic struggles of that small Unitarian communities in the region. We reached out to Fiatvalva in Transylvania nearly 30 years ago, as the Eastern Bloc was loosened from the grip of the Soviet Union. Our principal financial focus is on projects that expand educational opportunities for our Unitarian partners and the broader communities in which they live. We thank River Roaders who have supported these programs over nearly 3 decades. And we thank those who have already contributed this year. You should know that in Mount Blanc, your donations support critical basic infrastructure capital projects and pay the salaries of 3 teachers in the Unitarian school. The school serves as the public school for the village children. Our financial gifts then provide both education and employment. In Fiatvalva, we support capital improvements, educational opportunities for church members, and a very unique after-school program that offers supplemental education to economically disadvantaged children, particularly the Roma children. Now, in this video, you will hear messages from our Unitarian partners and learn about how you can give.
We at Unitarian Church Mount Blanc, we all hope that you are doing good. We sense our greetings as you are getting together today. And we are so grateful that for this partnership, and we felt happy to know that there's somebody around the globe who love us and knowing us.
Dear friends, next Sunday, here in Fiatvalva, we are celebrating the Thanksgiving, one of the most major holidays of the Unitarians. And at that occasion, we will have communion in this year in a special way, not as we used to do it because of the restrictions and the regulations. But we hope that we can celebrate together in this church, to celebrate together in our homes, to celebrate and to thank God for all the blessings He gave us. We can say that during the years, and even in this year, we experienced a lot of wonderful blessings. Among all the challenges, among all the hard times during the years, one of the biggest gift was your friendship. Your friendship and your love, compassion, and your interest in our lives. We hope we all hope here in Fiat-Volvo that you there in Washington, D.C. and Bethesda, at the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation, you all will experience all the blessings life can give for you. You may know that we all are thinking of you. We all are praying for you. And we wish to all of you a good health. We wish to all of you all the blessings you are wishing for. And we hope that not too far in the future, we will have possibilities, occasions to meet with you, to say thank you, to experience the moments, the wonderful moments and gifts what new friendships give to us. Next Sunday, in our church, we will say thank you to our God. We will say thank you for all the friendships, for all the care, and we pray for you and for this world to be blessed again. Take care. With love from Fiat-Volvo.
As you can see on your screen, there are many ways to give here at River Road. Perhaps the quickest and most convenient right now is to text to give. That number will be put in the chat right now. It's also here on the screen, 73256. Be sure to choose Partner Church from the menu. Is always the beauty of Extend the Offering. It's not just about giving only, but about creating, sustaining, and fulfilling partnerships. And one of the challenging beauties of this time is how connected we can still be, even given the pandemic and the time and the space. That what we do supports Unitarianism across this world and in our own communities. So as you hear the music play, please give as you're willing and able.
company in all the world, the company of those who have known suffering. When it seems our sorrow is too great to be borne, let us think of the great family of the heavy-hearted into which our grief has given us entrance. And inevitably, we feel about us their arms, their sympathy, their understanding. Believe when you are most unhappy that there is something for you to do in this world. So long as you can sweeten another's pain, life is not in vain.
There is a grief that changes everything. There is a kind of grief that remakes the world and the way that time moves in the world. There's life before and during grief like that. There is life after it, though let us be honest, after implies a finality to grief that doesn't quite track with the lived experience of it. It is more accurate to say that there is life that goes on in the context of such grief, and that context changes over time. This is grief that happens in time. There was a moment before it. There is a light that beckons, if not at the end of the tunnel, then at least in and through that tunnel towards something that is emerging. There is, however, also grief that has no clear trajectory. There is grief that has no set beginning, no middle phase, and as with other griefs, no end exactly, but just a steady transformation from one state of being to another, and yet another, and another. Our brains, as human beings, are in fact hardwired for the work of coping with grief that has shape and discernible cause and marked trajectory. Our brains are designed to work through grief that goes somewhere. Perhaps it even goes somewhere in discernible stages, grief that moves, even if only subtly as we too move day by day through our living. The fact that our brains are wired to cope with a grief that has clear causation and a trajectory and presumably some end, it means that when we are faced individually or collectively with an amorphous grief that is slippery to pin down, we struggle very deeply to make sense of it. This kind of grief, it can feel like an unformed dread, not of one thing, but of everything. And it can move deceptively into the small corners of our lives and leave us so tired that we do not know what to do next. If you feel that kind of grief, it means that showing kindness to yourself is important, because your brain, like everyone else's, is not wired for this ambiguity. And so if you are holding an ambiguous and ill-formed, slippery sort of grief right now, it means that you are learning to cope in a circumstance you were not wired for. And if you are tired, it is because you are constantly adapting. And that adaptation requires a great deal of you on almost every level of your being. All of us adapting. For in these days, we are collectively struggling with perhaps the modern world's most prominent example of an ambiguous experience of grief. As psychology professor Charles Benight has said, a pandemic, unlike an earthquake or a fire, is invisible. You can't see it. You can't taste it. You just don't know. Likewise, in an earthquake or a storm, it doesn't last forever. There is a trajectory to it, but an ambiguous time of grief, such as this one that comes in successive waves, we cannot know when the clouds will part and the pelting will subside. We cannot know when we'll be safe. We cannot know how long, oh Lord, it will be, until the lines between what we fear and what we hope for are clearly demarcated and crossed over. In an article in The Atlantic in August, the author Tara Haile reflected on the fact that this very ambiguity is part of what makes resilience so hard to find in these days. As she said, pandemics don't respect neat boundaries. They come in waves, ebbing and flowing, blurring crisis and recovery, one into the other, and our words become familiar mantras spoken over and over again in home after home and heart after heart. How long will this last? How long do I have to go before I see the people I love again? How long until things are normal again? How long do I have to wear this mask? How long does every single day have to take before finally we live in something that feels definitively like the time after the crisis? How long, we lament? How long? And that communal lament of ambiguous grief, it is of course not unique to this moment in time or to we ourselves. It echoes in the ancient lament of the psalmist who sat down so long ago with nothing but absence at his side and cried out those aching words of Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my own thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph? How long? How long? There are historians who say this psalm of lament refers to some specific moment when families conspired against each other and the author of those ancient poetic words felt abandoned by his best beloved. There are plenty of other scholars who say that even trying to pin down a specific instance is pointless because the grief expressed in those words is universal. It is your grief and mine. It is your unknowing, ambiguous loss and mine. The speaking of the lament is the most honest possible prayer sometimes because lament is itself a way of calling attention to human suffering. It is the beginning of empathy itself. If we can feel it and own it, this lamentation of overwhelm, if we can put it into words, then we can begin to do the ultimate work of grieving, which is and has always been meaning making. If we can name it, this grief we hold, then we can give shape to the shapeless, form to the formless. If indeed we can declare that what we feel for ourselves and for the world, even while not knowing grief's trajectory, then perhaps we can settle into something other than merely the indeterminate morass of what lies ahead. Perhaps we can settle into this moment which shines with beauty, into all the grace that still dwells within this, our lives, into the possibilities of action and agency that pulse within every day. In this season of All Souls and All Saints, we honor all those who have passed, the one whose loss marks time for us forever after. We honor the very specific griefs that we will carry with us and be transformed by every living day. We also honor that loss which we cannot fully name, but which we carry heavily nonetheless. The ambiguous grief that leaves us wondering aloud to the mystery, how long? And we remember that through it all, through the grief that we can name all too well and the grief for which no one has a name, there is still meaning and love and beauty and community. For in the end of that ancient poem, the psalmist declares ultimate trust in the love that he cannot now see and yet knows to be there, right by his side. a love perhaps as difficult to pin down as the grief he holds. And to trust in that love, to trust that it lives in this moment, expressed in beauty such as we have seen in our time together today. To trust in that love is to thrive in and through the power of our holy lamentation, the empathy that is born from it, and the grace that does wait. Carry on this week, brave friends, and blessed be. here at the end of our service today, what can we say but thank you? Thank you to each of you for being here. Thanks to each of you who raised your voices then and raise your voices still. Thank you to each of those who sang in that choir and are no longer with us. Thank you to our tech team, Bill Pugh and Lisa Orange, who hosted our service. To our amazing choir, to Clif Hardin and Shuai Wong and Linda Ryden for bringing their gifts and graces to our community this weekend. To Enzo and Roan Sokol Chang for our chalice. To Reverend Amanda for keeping us all on track, and for every soul who brings their love and devotion to bear in our worship. To Pat Wand, David Marshall Leonard, Joel Schrag, and the whole Partner Church team, we are equally grateful. We can only do this if we do this together. And now, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies, guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Amen.